welcome to season 5. Yes, I've actually made it to season 5 already. This is episode 40 of Performing the Arts. So that'll be episode 40 in the regular route, but episode 1 of season 5 of the regular route, depending on how you see this. So, anyway, I'm talking with Thandiwe McMillan today, and I've known her for the past couple of years, mostly again from college. And although it wasn't from Brooklyn College this time, it was from BMCC. So it's odd how there's a lot of things that it's odd how sometimes, and this is something I was just talking about just in my last episode, is that theater, regardless of what you're doing, is always a small world. So it's always going to be somewhere. You're always going to be meeting someone who you know, maybe from college or something like that, who will pop up from time to time, especially in your life, either as a backstage worker or maybe you're seeing them on set or what have you. But yeah, uh, I guess my first question is, how'd you get into performing arts?
So I would say like performing arts in general, since I was a child, I just really loved acting. I loved performing and things of that nature. So in I started out in this theater called, oh my gosh, the Black Spectrum Theater when I lived in Queens. And I think that was my first time actually going somewhere to do acting. But before that, I would do these little shows, put on these little Christmas shows for my family and force my siblings to be in them. So I always knew that I wanted to do performing arts. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like remember those days of saying, "Oh, by the way," I honestly remember those days of, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to be doing a stunt show at my uncle's house," and then and of course the stunt show would probably be just me consistent me just doing pratfalls into the pool when we had a pool. So yeah, and I remember like being around the same age, saying too, it's like, "Oh, by the way," to be saying to my teachers, come by my, my uncle's house, and you'd be seeing me doing a sun. So it's like, okay, Brian, maybe not, maybe something like that. So yeah, I,
Yeah.
I think it's like once you get the bug to act, especially at an early age, you just kind of keep on wanting going forward.
Yeah,
So
I feel like it never really goes away. Well, at least for me, it's still there.
yeah, it honestly is still there for me, but it also has to do with something that I do keep in mind, which is essentially burnout, because I really don't want to be the type of actor who always keeps on acting to project to project without really stopping. So, you know, I just recently did a production of Almost Maine, and I did the first act and second act over Zoom. And, right now, even though this show is sort of like my bread and butter, I'm also just taking care of myself just to make sure it's like, hey, I just essentially just did 2 Zoom plays almost back to back,
Right.
or Zoom readings back to back. So I might as well just keep it, maybe in like the end, probably towards in the middle of next month to say, hey, when's the next reading or when is the next something to do? Because I need to do something that isn't going to be something like, uh, I'm just gonna go into another burnout mode. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's it's definitely something that picks at you when you're young, especially if you are doing it young, and never really goes away. Even when you're not really acting, you're still kind of like thinking about your acting exercises and stuff like that. You can be even on the grocery line, and then all of a sudden, just like it's a very long grocery line. It's like, what can I do? What can I do? And all of a sudden, just and of course, we're wearing masks, most of the time now. When I say most of the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you can easily just start doing your, vocal warm-ups. No one would bat an eye because no one will be no one, because since we're all wearing masks, no one can notice like where that noise is coming from. Otherwise, it's just like,
Mhm.
and of course, it's like it, it's like, Betty bought a bit of butter and all that stuff, and no one would always bat an eye because again, we're wearing a mask. So it's
Yeah.
obviously something that always allows you to essentially to come back to you, especially as an actress. But
definitely.
As an actress, were you inspired by anything growing up?
Um, like specific people?
Yeah, specific people, maybe specific films, plays, TV shows, what have you. Is like because as we all know, it's like being an actor, actress, right? It's a pretty broad range, and when you're doing something like theater, it's even much more of a broader range. And if you're doing TV, film, something, so forth and so on. So when you were growing up as a wee bit, want to become like an actress, were there like certain actresses or films, whatnot, that actually were essentially allowing you to say, hey, this is a great inspiration for me to actually keep on going?
To be honest, I don't think so. Like in general, I wouldn't say that I had a role model and I saw an actress or actor and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be like them. It was mostly like whenever I would watch movies in general, I
Yeah,
would think, oh, I think that I would do it this way, or how can I show that emotion? And I think with that, that was kind of how I was inspired by movies. I don't know that maybe not a lot of people say that, but I was just inspired by movies in general, by watching movies and seeing someone perform and thinking, oh, I would love to be them. I would love to be doing what they're doing.
yeah.
And I would say now I do definitely look up to certain actresses like Viola Davis. I really love Jennifer Lawrence. Um, who else? Who else? Lupita.
Hmm.
Like those actresses, I feel are phenomenal, and there are obviously more. But if someone were to ask me, hey, like what actresses do you aspire to be like? I would say them. But I do want to just be myself as well, if that
Yeah,
makes any sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's weird because I had the same conversation with, I believe, someone from BMCC, and I forgot who it was, and they were basically talking about, hey, your vocal patterns remind me of Christopher Walken. It's like you have the same similar style. I'm like, no, not really, but it's like it's definitely, there are influencers, right, that do inspire you to be an actor, but
Yes. Yes.
in terms of inspirations, there's always so many actors and actresses that are pretty much big inspirations, even from
Yeah.
someone like me. Uh, yeah. Speaking of BMCC, I kind of like knew you from, again, some mutual friends, Keenan and pretty much like a few
Mhm.
other people, and and it was the off the top improv club that they were essentially all doing. Uh, that was essentially going to be, well, it's weird because when I was doing the club scene over there, I was also the treasurer for the acting club. I mean, not the drama club. So it's weird having essentially like almost like two theater clubs, like almost like
Mhm.
back to back to each other. And of course, but when you, okay, when you were, since you said to me before, oh, you're not in New York City anymore because you don't live in New York City.
Mhm.
When you were living in New York City, did you want to be in okay, this is actually a good question. When it came to theater, I guess theater education, there we go. There's many places to go for theater education, especially as an actor. Would you want to do the studio system where it's just like, oh, pay 8 weeks to do like pay for something for 8 weeks, blah blah blah, or be in a conservatory and do like a 2 year conservatory like that, or
Mhm.
do the college route where it's basically stuff like that. When it came to theater education, what were you essentially thinking? Did you want to be in a college setting, or did you want to be in like a conservatory or studio where it's just like, I want to be like hands-on learning about different type of theater styles or different type of acting? There we
So when I started going to BMCC, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to major in because I mean, we are humans and we're
go.
multifaceted. And I really love the English language and I like writing. So I wasn't sure whether I wanted to major in theater or in English. I ultimately decided I knew I would transfer. I knew I would finish at BMCC and go
Yeah.
somewhere else. And I ultimately decided that if I were just a liberal arts major, then I would probably get more of my credits into the following school. So I didn't, in my heart, I knew it was theater or English or both. But just for the sake of the credits, I decided to be a liberal arts major. And in terms of what type of school I wanted to go to, I thought to myself, okay, now I kind of want to learn about everything. I don't want to just stick to one field right now in college. College is about like exploring different classes, I think, like taking, things like that. So I thought, okay, if I do want to focus on theater, I on acting, then I can just go to grad school or something, or I can go to a really hardcore program, like a really intense program or something like that. So I
Yeah.
don't have to do that in BMCC. Besides, I just come back from Madrid, from Spain, and I was still kind of like in party mode. So I didn't even know what I wanted
Oh yeah.
in that moment. It was only after I graduated from BMCC. I graduated from BMCC, and then it was like time. I had to make the decision. Am I going to major in English or theater, or am I going to do both? And I got into Swarthmore College, and I also got into Columbia, but I ended up going to Swarthmore, and I decided, you know what? I couldn't decide actually. I couldn't decide for a while if I wanted to do English or theater. I just kept thinking, what if I do both? But is that going to be a lot? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So after this really traumatic event happened in my life, I I just had a realization that life is like so short, and I really should do something that I really, really love. And although I do love writing, I love acting even more. So
Yeah.
that ultimately led me to being a theater major. Now, I will say I did I do love acting, but I took a lot of English classes. Well, I didn't take English classes, but I still focused on my writing. I did take
Yeah.
English classes, not a lot, like my poetry classes and things like that.
I will say that English classes do help you as an actor because it does help you read a lot better in terms of scripts and
Yeah, and you have to analyze things, analyze text and things like that. So it definitely does help you. And I really love poetry. I really love writing. So I will say this though. I prefer film and television. I did major in theater, but they didn't have a film and did they? I mean, I guess they had a film major, but for acting, I decided to do theater, but I am more interested in film and television than theater.
yeah. Uh,
Did I answer the question? I feel like really long-winded.
yeah, essentially, you did answer the question. Like, what really got you into it? Like when it came to because it is correct because when I was a college well, since I was a student when I was a student at Hunter College, I had the same thing where it's just like, do I want to go into film or theater? And I was like, you know what, may as well just try because in college they have the great distinction of major in something but minor in something. So the major in something is something that you definitely want to do in life, but minoring something is something that you basically want to say, hey, this is something like a backup for later. Maybe
Mhm.
it's like the majoring that you were doing is not really panning out. So you still have enough time to maybe switch it out. And so it's like, oh, by the way, blah, blah, blah. And it's definitely, definitely a hard choice, especially as an actor, that what background I would rather do, with something like film, you have a lot of potential to do. It's like, oh, even though the hours are long, you could just do take after take after take after take, and after a while, it's like, okay, this is the best take. We'll use this one, right? But with theater, it's odd because theater is almost like a lightning bolt. Well, theater is a lightning bolt because once you hit it, and like once the lightning bolt hits you, it's like all this energy is just like expelled out into you onto the stage, and then essentially you don't want to be anywhere else aside from being stage. So yeah, it's definitely a hard choice as an actor. It's like, do you want to do film slash TV or would you want to do theater? And it's like it it's definitely one of the hardest choices, especially for me because
I think you could do both though.
yeah, you can do
A
both.
lot of good actors have a theater background.
Yeah, and
A lot
it
of
does.
television actors.
Yeah, and it does help you if you do have a theater background to work in film or TV, and because again, having a theater background allows you to do a lot more film TV wise because they're like, oh, you did a lot of theater, okay. So it definitely helps you. It also helps. It also when you're like a film TV head like me and just like watch so many movies and just like watch so many shows, kind of like start noticing people who pop up on like say Law and Order and like, hey, I know them from like theater. It's like I've seen them on theater work, and then it suddenly just kind of like clicks, like, okay, maybe a lot of this stuff actually does feel a lot more better. It's like maybe you can actually just branch out and actually do both. But yeah, and then there are people who actually try and do video game roles or voiceover roles, and that's even much more of a insane, not insane, but that's even much more of a thing. But that's a whole different other discussion of all that stuff. But yeah, now you mentioned uh Dartmoor. Is it Dartmoor or is it Swarthmore? Okay, I heard something more, so I immediately went to Dartmoor. I was like, I think that is a college. I mean, Swarthmore. So I think Swarthmore is the one in, I believe, England, or because I remember you posting about how you were in England.
Okay, so Swarthmore is in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
However, yeah, I did go to England. I did go. So what happened was I went to Swarthmore and they have these grants that they give every summer, a few $1,000s, and they give it to students. You have to apply and everything.
Yeah.
And it's just basically you spend the summer doing something that has something to do with your major.
Yeah.
And for me, my major was theater, and I really wanted, before I even got into Swarthmore, I was looking up schools that I wanted to attend just for remember I was talking about the intense course? I was thinking, what intense courses are out there? And I came across the British American Drama Academy, which is in Oxford University.
Yeah.
So, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
The British American Drama Academy, and I also was looking at Lambda as well for an intense summer program. So I applied to the Midsummer at Oxford program with Oxford University, and it was a Shakespeare intensive course. It was like 1 month or it's like 6 weeks, something like that, at Oxford, and like so much like intense acting training. So I applied, was put on the wait list, then called off the wait list, and yay, I got in. So that's what I did. That's why I went to England. So I was sent there. It was such a life-changing experience, and it definitely helped me so much with my acting. Would strongly recommend it. But yeah, that's where I went. I did study theater at Swarthmore though. That was my major, so I did take courses and I did have my senior play and all that other stuff.
All right. Now you mentioned the other school before, Columbia. When you got into now, it's sad because I know a couple of people who actually applied from BMCC who actually got into NYU. When you were applying to other like different colleges, especially in New York City, were you aiming towards either? Now, did you actually look into like, do I want to go at NYU or do I want to go to Columbia? Because Columbia is a college I really don't really hear about in terms of their theater thing, because like I would hear stuff about their theater stuff, but most of the people who I know from acting wise, they came out from like NYU, the NYU acting school or film school, whatnot. And anybody who came from Columbia are usually just, it depends on the level of I think of the level of their thing. I know there are actors who actually come from Columbia, but in terms of Columbia, was there a reason why you were looking to go to Columbia at the time, or was that just one of the places that just say, hey, yeah, we'll take you?
I knew that I wanted to go to a top school. I wanted to go to an Ivy League or a really like a top tier college, top tier university college in general, my mother always instills education in me, and she's really about about these top colleges. So that was one reason. Another reason is a lot of these top colleges have a lot of money. And when
Oh,
they have money, they give money. And some of the experiences I've had would not have been the case had I not gotten into a top college.
yeah,
So yeah, I could have. So that's what I was looking for when I applied to colleges. I looked at Columbia because I know there are some actors that came, the Gyllenhaal siblings. Is that their last name? I don't know. I know they went there. They went
Illinois.
to Columbia. And I was thinking about the connections that you get at these institutions. And I was like, look, I need that. And I know I also need their money. The problem with Columbia was that they were not offering me enough financial aid.
Yeah,
So barely anything. And also this, you already know this industry is difficult to break into. This is not the sciences. And so just to graduate with all this debt, yeah, that was not
yeah,
very appealing to me.
yeah.
Whereas Northmore offered me a nearly full scholarship,
Oh, wow.
$70,000. And so that was kind of the obvious choice, even though it was really hard for me to come up with that decision. I really had to think about it. Um, so I chose Swarthmore. And on top of that, once I got into Swarthmore, this this summer thing I did at Oxford, it cost around $8,000. It cost a lot of money that I did not have to pay. I didn't have to pay 1 cent of that because Swarthmore provided me with this grant. So I knew that I just know that these schools have so much money and they're willing to give you this money once you get in. So that was a
Wow.
big reason why I chose Swarthmore.
Yeah.
Uh, I forgot the question. I always go off on a tangent.
No, 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 no problem. The question was like, what, like, why? Because again, this is the same thing in New York City. Is like when in New York City, if you want to be an actor, a lot of the times people are like, oh, I'll probably want to go to NYU because NYU has a great, acting school and stuff like that too, and or acting conservatories. But it's like sometimes you do have to think about it logically. Is like what school would help me both with my major and what I'm really aiming for, and also what school would actually help me both, uh, you know, not only uh, financially because a lot like Columbia, Columbia's a top tier school, but you have to pay like maybe a lot of money. Yeah, well, you have to pay a lot of money just to go there. Same with NYU, and if you get a scholarship, that basically takes off maybe half the thing, but you're still paying like a lot more just to get there. So, and it definitely does help you a lot where if you do have like the financial like backing of somebody, especially if a college is already saying, hey, we give you like we'll gladly pay 8 grand for you to go out, fly across the seas to Oxford and study abroad for like 8 or so weeks and study about Shakespeare. We'll gladly do that.
Yeah.
Compared to other places that will say, hey, who wouldn't really go around, who really wouldn't take the time of day to actually do that. So yeah, it definitely helps. One, what is the university or college helping me in my thing, but also are they really helping me and actually giving me the financial support that they need?
Yeah.
And financial support is always going to be a great motivating factor for an actor because as an actor, it's like we kind of work ourselves to the bone, and we kind of like well, we don't kind of we work ourselves to the bone, and we do want us to get some compensation for that in the end. So yeah, Swarthmore, could you tell more about your experience or experiences at Swarthmore as a student there? Because it does sound like a interesting school so far.
Um, yeah, it was an interesting school. Um, so like I said, I majored in theater there, and one thing I would say is I really like that BMCC had a lot of on-camera classes. I'm not sure if it's just because I didn't really do any. I only did one film and media studies class at Swarthmore,
Yeah.
but they focused more on theater than on film. I'm not sure if that's actually completely true, if I just didn't know how to access these other programs, so like don't quote me, but um, I would say that this theater department was very small at Swarthmore. I was part of the drama board, which was basically a student-run club that provided financial assistance to people who wanted to see their productions come to life.
Hmm.
So we were basically producing their small shows, and
Yeah.
we would get money from the school. All the clubs were able um, to get money from the school. So that's what I did. I was doing that while I was there. Um, I was also in other theater classes that were like theater history seminars. So we would like learn about
Yeah.
the history of theater, things like that, mandatory for the major. And then we also had a final project, which we basically had to do a production, and it was all student run for the most part. We had the support of the adults and the professors, but we ended up doing fucking A. Do you know it?
Yeah.
Glory Parks. Um, so we ended up doing that play, and that was at the end of my senior year. And then I also did the Oxford thing. Gosh, it was such a good program, the Oxford thing. I took acting two because I took acting one at BMTC. Great, great class with Chuck. I think his name is Chuck Burks or something. Really amazing class. And then I took acting two with this professor named Alex Tora. Everyone loves him at Swarthmore College, and it was really great, really great. I would say that I really preferred the actual acting part, like acting two and acting one. Learning about the history of theater it was informative, I guess, but it was kind of like, oh, all these white men and like no people of color, same thing. And I was kind of tired of it. Yeah.
Yeah. A
So
couple of years ago, when I was at Hunter, my last theater history class, which I was glad to get a lot of this prerequisites done at another college. So when I went to Brooklyn College and graduated from there, a lot of the prerequisites were already gone anyway. And and this is actually something that is brought up a lot at Brooklyn College, and not only Brooklyn College, but also a lot of community places, is that there are a lot of you know, there is a difficulty. I mean, yeah, there's a difficulty for CUNY related schools to adapt BIPOC plays, or at least playwrights. And, one of my previous guests at OC Theater, we were all talking about how Brooklyn College was doing a production of Sweat or something like that. And Gloria,
those were the options actually. We were thinking about that for the final.
yeah, it was like Sweat, and then there was like Gloria, and then there was like Passover, and a lot of the times we were all talking about how essentially there would be a lot more white actors in these certain roles as opposed to, say, people of color, whereas it's like there will be more people of color at colleges and whatnot. But the problem is, at some of these places, the BFA program really does have like the top tier okay of like saying, hey, if you're doing a play, the BFA program is going to be like the top people. Is like, hey, yeah, if you're doing like Sweat, two of the main roles have to be played by BFA actor, right? And then they'll be like, everybody else could be like a BA actor, all that stuff, or if they're minor or something like that. It's like this. It's hard for. And again, it's like when I was back to my original point, when I was learning about all this stuff with history, it's like it wasn't really fun to learn about history, because it's like it's fun to learn about history, but at the same time, when you're learning about theater history, you rather learn about stuff that's happening now, because theater history, the stuff that's happening now in theater is a lot more important and informative than the stuff that's like, it's like, all right, we'll learn about what happened in 1889 or something like that, or something. And then by the time you get to the 1900s, it sounds like it's getting important, and then the semester's over and then the class is over. It's like, if you
Yeah.
if you want to learn about theater history, you should at least start at the 1900s or something like that, and then
Just the same stories told by the same people. Like, come on, there are Black people and people of color that have stories to tell. Like, why can't we do stuff about them? When I was in one class and we did Marie Antoinette, nobody cares. I mean, well, people care. I don't care like about her. I really don't. Like, I want to hear about other people. Like, I want other stories to be told. I'm just tired of the same thing, the same European thing.
and I
Like,
think
seriously.
oh, and I think the European thing is actually a lot more of a reason why some of these things are always produced essentially, and why you know a few years ago when it was on Broadway, Slave Play was a big play because it's like it's like people like I would always see people not only going to the thing but also just my college would always be like, oh, here's a couple of free tickets to see this play. It's like that sort of thing. And of course, I never got to see it because one, being a college student and trying to see a Broadway show, or it's trying to hard to do. It's like, oh, they could see a Broadway show for like one night only, and then suddenly, as you're watching the show, it's like, is there anything I had to do to David later? It's like, do I have any homework I got to do? And then suddenly the rush home, and then suddenly crap, 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 crap. It kind of like hampers it kind of like hampers the idea of going to see a Broadway show, and then even if it's a free free vouching ticket from like the thing. But anyway, yeah, it you know there is a definite notion of people, people of color, Black theater, not only Black theater that has been trying to rise into this notion of regular theater, but because of the whole notion of European theater, which is essentially the old school type of theater. It's hard to do theater, and then suddenly I feel like it was starting to do well last year. Like there were like notions of like stuff that was actually going to be like that was going to springboard into things, and then the coronavirus hit, and then it's like a lot of this stuff like shut down all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things that you know it's definitely one of those things that it's like I could easily see a lot of this stuff like really, really, expanding, and then something like this really hits, and then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, it's back to square one. But there are a lot more. I will say this though, within the past few years, I will say that there were a lot more people
Yeah.
trying to expand into allowing BIPOC performers, but not only performers, but also like playwrights and stuff like that too, into like the more uh, main, oh, mainstream audience, especially on something like Broadway. Uh, you know, Case in point, one of my jobs I did a couple of years ago was doing taking people, not taking people's tickets, actually, yeah, taking people's tickets to the theater, right? And one of the main shows that was always seen, to have a lot of people going to was Ain't Too Proud, the musical about the Temptations. And no matter the day, and it was like no matter, there was always a line that goes to the thing. So, and Ain't Too Proud is also on a block that has the Lion King and uh, the guy with the broken Dear Evan Hansen and stuff like that. And I'm just like, if there and of course from that is like Slave Play and all that stuff too. Is like, but there's always, and I think what I'm trying to say is also when there's a lot of all these different theaters like performances, all that stuff too. There's a lot of people who want to go see a show, but sometimes it also has to do with what show is, I want to say, dealing the best price, because people
Yeah.
don't want, to spend like because I mean people do want to, the people who will spend like $500, $600, or rich people, and they could go and watch a show for like 2.5 hours or something like that. Then there are people who are like, someone like me and pay like $100 something odd dollars to see the show up in the mezzanine and be in the same exact thing. So it definitely it definitely feels like within the past few years there has been a uptick of BIPOC not only performances but also just like theater in general. But I think the coronavirus really did like put a hamper on a lot of things, especially since but thanks in part of the coronavirus, Hamilton was a big success on Disney Plus, so there is that. So, but yeah, it, it, in your experience, it's like, or in your opinion, and experience, what do you think can be subtle for in terms of like a not necessarily what's the term settlement, but in terms of like a thing where it's like everything is kind of sort of like balanced out, if you understand if you can understand the question
What do you mean?
In terms of your experience and opinion, do you think in your experience and opinion, do you think within the next few years, or mostly in the next few years, do you think there'll be more people who are going to see Black culture theater or BIPOC theater or what have you?
Yeah, definitely, because of the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. Productions are starting to get more diverse. They definitely need to pick up the pace, honestly. But yeah, I noticed even in the commercial and film world, things are starting to get more diverse. They're starting to hire more Black people. I think because now they feel they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
But I think that things will become more natural in the future. Just give it Black people and people of color these positions in power and see what happens.
I just speaking of this, on Twitter yesterday, I was actually just reading that they were going to be rebooting Cheaper by the Dozen, which is it's like, oh,
seriously, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they were going to be rebooting Cheaper by the Dozen about a multiracial family, and the head and the two people that they cast as the thing is, one is Gabrielle Union, who's a fantastic actress, and to play her husband was Zach Braff, and I'm just like, Zach Braff.
Wait, let me look him up. How can you spell the name?
Zach Braff. So it was ZACK and then BRAFF. So if you've seen Scrubs or something like that, you probably know his face. But I was like, and I was actually talking, and I actually tweeted this. I was like, yes, when I think of a multiracial family, that the patriarch of a multiracial family, yes, I think of Zach Braff. Because it's like, he's like the most whitest actor you could probably think of. And he does play like a very whitish role anytime he is on screen. So, but
I mean, that's a start, I guess.
I mean, it is a start, but at the same time, you could easily have casted anyone else aside from someone like that. But I guess they were trying to appeal to not only the people who watch Cheaper by the Dozen, but also just like people who are essentially, well, the people who own Disney, no, not the people, well, the people who own Disney Plus, Disney, obviously, hence the name. They're people, the people who watch the thing are typically families and all that stuff too. So they're obviously trying to pay toward, I mean, cater it. There we go. Cater towards families and stuff like that too. So of course they use someone who is essentially a family actor. So yeah, and you're right. There are roles that are now opening more and more towards Black actors, Black actresses, directors, all that stuff too. If this was a few years ago, Jordan Peele wouldn't have gotten his chance to direct two Oscar-winning movies. So yeah, it's definitely, and again with something like Black Lives Matter, there are more people who are definitely asking for more opportunities for Black actors and actresses, but I think the opportunities are running or not running out. It's just that they're not getting the opportunities because of essentially, you know, studios, the studio mandates, and it's like it's definitely like it, it's hard to describe because studio mandates is like, will this person sell this many tickets? And they're all about people wanting to buy a product. So even if, of course, and the sad thing is that a lot of this stuff that happens down the line is mostly about business, and business is like
Yeah,
legit.
but people want to see people of color and Black
Yeah,
people,
yeah, but
mm,
it's like,
business or not.
yeah, business or not, it's like, and the sad thing is like, how many other roles can Viola Davis or Denzel Washington play without some other people like, uh, yeah, it's like, well, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like the business side of acting or the business side of entertainment is always going to be a nasty beast, especially for those who are trying to break out into the the system itself. But again, that's a whole different discussion. That's a whole different tangent. That's a whole different thing. Because I, I feel like that's always something that's going to be scratched on the surface, and people don't want to hear about the scratch. They rather just put a band-aid over it and just like continue on and just wait until it is finally until something is like that. It's finally just like posturing with this, like, until it's like, okay, I can't put another band-aid over it. I gotta deal with this. It's like the pain is finally there. But it's definitely because I definitely do think because of Black Lives Matter and over the past, like say, few years, there has been an uptick of BIPOC performances and also just performance in general, and also just like opportunities for people to actually get into that. It's just that a lot of the studio mandates have just been like, again, it's a whole different discussion, and and again, it's a whole different. And of course, look at me, I'm white as they come, so it's like I can't really talk about this because one, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not this color, so yeah. But yeah, it's definitely something I do see. Uh, it's definitely it's definitely something I do see becoming stronger within the next few years, if not within the next several years. But yeah, shit, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, so theater. Uh, yes, sorry about that, folks. Tangents or not, sometimes the talks between my guests and I are thoroughly entertaining, but sometimes it's something that I need to take care of myself to not talk much. Because it's you who is on my guest, and sometimes I will be talking and like I do want to give you a chance to speak. So yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know by the time this episode has come out, your book has already come out. So do you want to go into the process of how you got into how, because you mentioned before that you weren't you mentioned before you weren't sure how if you weren't going to be like, even though you love theater, it's like you also loved English as well. So was this like writing a book also came the notion of, oh, poetry and stuff like that too, where it's just like I want to have something to really write. So was that something that was that one of the inspirations? There we go.
No, not really. I mean, I always loved writing, and I've loved poetry for as long as I can remember. I always planned on writing a book, but to be honest, I don't even think this is the right platform to be talking about my book because people, I don't know, this is for performing arts, right? I don't really think of writing as performing.
Well, technically,
But
yeah. Well, yeah. Performing
I
art.
mean,
When I say performing arts, it's like a up there.
but yeah, I mean, I did, I'd already just knew I wanted to write a book, period. Like I knew I wanted to write a book. I knew I wanted to write a poetry book. and I just had the perfect opportunity in Swarthmore because I was able to work one on one with the professor, and really, she really looked at my poems, and she's the poetry laureate of Philadelphia. So
Hmm.
I was able, so she knows her stuff basically, and she's a Black woman, which is great for me. And yeah, basically that's what happened. I'm not going to go into too many details about my book because, like I
Yeah.
said, I just don't think this is the right
Yeah.
platform.
No problem.
But yes, I am writing a book, and it is actually, I'm not writing it. I'm finished with it. I'm
Yeah.
just going on to the final stages of publication, just formatting and adding in the images and like finishing up the pre-launch, which ends tomorrow. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry. I have to remember to also do the same thing, where it's a sense of pre-order your book, because I keep saying I'll pre-order your book, but as I said previously before we start recording, uh, past couple of weeks and past couple of months have not been like the best time for me. So it's like, and of course, it's like going into winter. It's like winter has always just got to be the one. Winter has always going to be like one of those things where it's just like, eh. Anyway. Uh, Now, did you get a chance to actually see a theater in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I saw many plays. I saw quite a few because Swarthmore would always give us like free tickets. And also we had to see some for class. I
Uh,
thought they were pretty good. I went to the Wilma Theater. I also went to the Pig Iron. I think I went to Pig Iron Theater. And also a lot of these professors are affiliated with these theaters. Like they're actually part of, they work there, and yeah, so we have connections, let's
yeah.
say. um
Uh,
yeah, so I did.
uh, could you actually, in your opinion, or yeah, in your opinion, do you feel like there is, because because with theater, it's like there's, Broadway theater, there's Chicago theater, but I've had a couple of guests who actually have been around, who actually lived in Philadelphia or are from Philadelphia, right?
Mhm.
I never actually seen Philadelphia plays or the actual productions. Is it essentially the same thing you'd be seeing on Broadway, on something like off Broadway or Broadway, or is it, or do they have like some sort of like secret that we don't know about, where it's just like they just bring up a sense of like like a step up, something like that.
No, I feel like it's the same thing. To be honest, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't remember ever seeing, actually that's not true. Yeah, I would say yeah, there's no secret. It's the same thing.
All right, so it's like between Broadway and probably the theater you've seen, it's like more or less.
I've never gone to a Broadway show before. So I would say Broadway is probably, in terms, they have more money, they have more financial support, so they probably have better quality plays. I would assume. I'm not sure. I've never been. I would like to.
Okay. Uh, inter- so yes, that's worth. It's worth more. Uh, if I'm pronouncing these things incorrectly, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just like, okay. At Swarthmore, now it is hard for people to have backing between the departments and stuff like that too. Especially, you know, uh, I know for a fact that at Brooklyn College, right before I actually graduated, there was a whole slew of, oh, we're going to be hiring, black professors, or BIPOC professionals, all that stuff. We're gonna be incorporating all that stuff. And again, I talked to my friends. They're like, oh yeah, it was only like maybe one or two plays, and of course, it's like, okay, just like that. But in terms of having a department that essentially had, okay, we got you back no matter what. Was it? Did you run into any difficulties into producing a play that was literally titled "fucking A," or was it just like, hey, we're gonna be doing a play that has a expletive in it, so there you go.
Um, no, I mean, to be honest, they treated us like adults, and we were able to produce this. Well, okay, we were able to perform, to do this. I don't know what the right wording is, but I they had to. I mean, we were seniors. Like we were going off into the world and we needed the experience. We can't have these people holding our hands forever.
Yeah.
So they kind of let us do our own thing and they just gave us advice when needed. I wasn't the director, someone else was the director, and I was just one of the actresses. There were 5 of us, I believe. All the theater majors that were seniors. I think there were 5 of us. And I think it went well.
Hmm.
Some people were annoyed because apparently the cast should be all black, but I was the only black person. No, I wasn't. There was another black guy. There was a black guy, but I don't know. I don't know. Some people were annoyed about that. And but I think the play itself went pretty well and we worked together. It was our first time like doing this like without any help. At least my first time.
Yeah.
So I'd say it was good.
Now, eh, I'm not sure what the process is, but was it essentially the same process to everything else, or did you have like a like almost like two semesters worth where it's just like, oh, we have the play, and then by the time it's just, or was it literally like they start? Because I don't know. Yeah, I literally don't know like the time frame to what was it for something like this, especially
One semester. We
one.
had one semester. Yeah.
Okay, so as a start semester, you got to play, and then so how long was that one semester? Was it just like 8 weeks, or was it like 6 weeks, or?
Um, it's kind of like I don't know how long a semester is. I think the average time is just like however long BNCC semesters are.
Oh, okay.
What we did do, so we started looking at plays over the summer before, because we did the play in the fall. So did we do the play in the fall? I'm pretty sure we did the play in the fall, and we started looking at plays over the summer because we weren't sure what we wanted to do. Then we thought about maybe doing our own plays, start writing a script from scratch, stuff like that. And so I guess we started looking and then we read the plays. And then finally, when we had a play and everyone should have read it, I didn't read it. I actually didn't read it before until we were actually doing the table read. That was my first time reading it. But then we came back to Swarthmore and then we had the play, fucking A. We read it, did table read. I think we did an audition first and then we did the table read. Yeah, we did the audition because everyone was gonna get in. We had to be in it. This is our major and this is our
Yeah.
um, final project. So we had to be in it just to figure out who was going to do what. So we had the audition, then we did the table reads, and from there, we had rehearsals. There's a little bit of singing, so we had someone come in for that. We also had an intimacy coach because there were some intimate scenes
Oh.
and so on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now you actually bring up a good point. An intimacy coach. Right now, because of COVID and stuff like that too. I forgot who it was talking about, but they were talking about how this was a TV show. I forgot what TV show they were talking about, and it's mostly like one of those not lovey-dovey TV shows, but like one of those romantic TV shows that teenage watches, right? And one of the actresses was talking about how because of the restrictions, whenever we have a kissing scene now, is after the kissing scene, we go out, wash our mouths for like 30 seconds or something like that. Now, in terms of intimacy things, especially on theater,
Mhm.
do you still see the same restrictions, or do you see something like? Because I'm not sure how intimacy protocols are in theater. It's like I've seen plays that actually had straight up nudity and stuff like that too, and it was always handled very tastefully,
Um,
somewhat.
Although they let us be adults, I think there were still some restrictions. There were still a little bit treat us like children a little bit. And I would say that yeah, I definitely see differences now. I'm not sure about theater because I haven't done any theater work since then. I've only done film and commercial stuff. But I so we went through the intimacy coach to do everything. Every little tiny body contact thing, the intimacy coach was there. There was also a rape scene in that.
Wow.
So definitely needed an intimacy coach. And there was a kissing scene. There was one kissing scene. I don't know how they felt about it, so I'm not going to speak for them. So, but I had an intimacy scene, two intimate scenes, and I'm not sure about the kissing because I didn't kiss anyone. But I don't really think washing your mouth out for 30 seconds is really gonna stop you from getting COVID, though. I must
Yeah.
admit. But I know I'm supposed to be in a production within the next few months, and I know that there's going to be some intimacy, there's going to be some kissing between myself and another actor, and I'm not sure what they're doing to make sure that we're both safe. I have to check and see. We're both gonna get tested for COVID, but it's kind of I don't know what we're gonna do because you get tested for COVID, then you just go home to your family or your roommates, and then you come back the next day. So you could have gotten COVID when you went home. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's something that's always that my brother even questions every single time he has to go to his doctor. He's like,
Yeah, I
I
know some people. What some people are doing, like Tom Cruise, people are like living, or like Tyler Perry, people are like living on the set, and then they're getting tested like every few days, and finally there's a certain point when no one has COVID and no one has left the premises. So I think that's something that would definitely work in the production. But that's not for theater. That's
yeah, that's definitely not theater because theater is like theater is like literally almost like a microscopic own organism. Like if it's entertainment like film and TV, I can understand,
yeah.
being on set, it's like people live in trailers. So it's like,
I mean, what they could do is they could start having people like live in the theater. Like instead of like a backstage just for hair and makeup and stuff, they could have like a backstage with beds. So people have to like stay there and live there.
yeah,
That seems like so crazy though. I'm
yeah.
sure they'll figure something out.
I could just imagine. I could just imagine some one of the actors like, okay, I'm going to bed, and then they just go up the stairs. It's like, all right, I'm in the balcony. Night.
Yeah, but if the show is only showing like 3 times, I feel like that's feasible, but if they're showing that show many times over the course of like, I don't know, months,
Yeah, it's definitely something
not really.
it's definitely something that they've been trying to keep. It's definitely something that probably gonna be like, okay, because West Side Story again. That's a big play that has like a that's a very big intimate play because they're kissing and then they're touching and all that stuff too. It's like, how do you do that, especially nowadays where it's like I'm not sure. It's like wait, and I'm not sure how film and TV are doing it because I know with film and TV, I've seen like actors and actresses who are essentially wearing like the visor thing and the mask and that sort of thing too.
Mhm.
If it's and they're, very socially distant stuff like that too. Where it's just like, if this was a couple of years ago, there'd be like 5 or maybe 8 people on set at a time, where it's just like there should be at least maybe 2 or 3 outside of the actors. So it's definitely something. So in okay, now I think this is a good way to wrap things up. Almost is that
Okay.
with film TV, and especially in your experience, how how much has it been able to change because of COVID? Or has there been protocols that has been like something like almost like they're still there, but they haven't been like really, really good yet?
Some changes.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so I would say that I really started my acting career like full on serious actress in May 2020, in the thick of COVID, like when everything was happening. Not May, maybe June actually, because I graduated in May. So I would say June was when I'm pretty sure in June I got an agent, was signed to an agency, and I started on Backstage and on all the other websites. So that's when I really started. So I don't think I can really say how much it has changed because I wasn't in it really before COVID. I only did one thing. I was in a Facebook watch series called Transformed, where it was like a little reality TV thing. And we didn't wear any masks and everyone was up in each other's faces, just like normal. So I guess the difference between that and now is that I was recently in a commercial and we had our masks on and people require testing, COVID testing and things like that. Some people don't some people don't care actually. Some people are just like, you know what, whatever. I mean, if you get it, you get it. But I feel like those are the like really lower, not non-professionals. Like they're just kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
But for the most part, people require you to wear masks. They have hand sanitizer. But like I said, some people really don't care that much. I was in one production and they didn't care. I was kind of uncomfortable with that. But um, yeah, I think that's what people are doing, just saying get tested and making sure that you test negative, making sure that you have your mask on unless you're the talent, unless you're the actor, can't have your mask on the camera.
Yeah.
So everyone else though, has their mask on.
In terms of testing, do you do it like once a day, or is it like once a day and then some? It's like we do it like once a day and then, or we do it right as we leave too, just to make sure.
So once a day.
Okay.
Well, I was in a commercial and they didn't require testing, but I had to wear a mask until it was time to shoot. So sometimes it's kind of like pointless because I was around these women like all day, wore a mask, and then I was socially distanced. So I was like, okay, I'll take my mask off. But for the most part, we wore masks. And when we were backstage, while they were setting up and doing everything, when it was time to shoot, I was really close to this woman and we were talking because it was part of the commercial. So I kind of was like, well, what was the point of me wearing a mask around her? And no one was tested for COVID beforehand. So I think sometimes we risk it. I know that's terrible, but I think sometimes we risk it. Whereas there's only been one gig that I've gotten where they required me to get tested beforehand. The others have not. They just said, okay, wear a mask, and that's it. And then it seems like everyone's all strict with the mask when we first get there, but as time starts to go on, people start to get a little bit careless with their mask. Like mask is like underneath their nose, or the mask is pulled away from their face completely. So
yeah, I just finished working over the holidays, and I'd be able to come back from break, and then I'd be like, oh crap, gotta put my mask back on. Be very professional about it. I think it's getting to a point where, especially with someone like Tom Cruise, who practically went nuclear meltdown over a couple of people, like not being
good, as he should have.
Yeah, and I can understand his whole point where it's just like him, there's a couple of people who were essentially being like almost close together or close together. I forgot what was saying, and it's definitely gonna get to a point where it's just like there are gonna be productions that will probably may or may not shut down because of restrictions. Robert Pattinson some months ago got hit with COVID, and then shut that. Well, yeah, got hit with COVID, and then or someone on the Batman side got hit with COVID, and they had to shut down the film set for a while, or at least a couple of weeks. So it's definitely something. It's definitely something that they got to figure out. It's definitely something that they're still figuring out, and I, and I think I've seen casting calls that that haven't really say, oh, by the way, make sure you get like a COVID test or something like that. And if I see those casting calls, I'm like, if I don't see a casting call that says make sure you are COVID tested beforehand, something like that. If that just say if it's a casting call that's online, that's probably okay, because I feel like online is much more like the norm now.
Yeah, like I've had all of my auditions have been online. I haven't had a single one in person.
Yeah, and I can't wait to be like in a actual audition room again, and actually going like, yes, this is why I really miss going out my way for like an hour or so just to do an audition for like 5 minutes and then hang back home. I couldn't do this online. But yeah, that's just the life in New York City. I'm not an artist in Pennsylvania. But yeah, it definitely feels like within the next, but it definitely feels like since this whole, it definitely feels like within the next like year or so, there will be stuff that are restrictions, but within the next couple of years, maybe by 2023 or maybe even 2020, maybe even earlier, those restrictions are probably going to be gone because a lot of this stuff has been probably been washed away, or just like everyone just kind of like used to it by now. And it's like, yeah, it's definitely one of those things. So yes, I do. That's the end of the episode. Sorry for trailing off. Now I do have 3 quick questions. One, do you have any advice to those who are essentially emerging artists, performing artists, especially as an actress, who are who are essentially trying their best to do in a time like this, where it's just like everything's online only, or at least something to that effect, especially if they are in film, TV, what can we expect for that? And what can they expect for that?
I still think that they should give it a shot now. I mean, I did. I started in the middle of all this. You can still do something. You can go to online classes. I take online acting classes once a week. You can still get your headshots done. I guess yeah, I think that you can get your headshots done. You can still work on your acting skills, get on backstage, apply to gigs. So I would say that they should just go for it. That's what I did. It's working out pretty well for me. So
Nice. Do you have any projects coming up that you can talk about, or is it still like it's still in the it's still in the planning stages and stuff like that? Because by the time this thing, it may actually already been out.
yeah. Okay, so I've already been in a few films. I was in a film a few weeks ago, short film. That will be, I don't even know when that's coming out. I think it's coming out in a few months. They're in the editing process now. I was also in another, that one was about a tourist who goes on vacation and meets this older woman, and the older woman sees herself in the tourist.
Oh, wow.
Tourist. And that I also was in another short film that was basically about, like when people say, oh, you're always on that phone, it's basically about like a phone and this guy becoming crazy because of the phone. I don't even know how much more I can say without spoiling it, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I will be.
If those films are actually are out, links are down below.
Okay. They are not. They are not right now. Maybe in the future you can put the link when they're actually out. One will be out in February though, so I don't know if it will be out before this goes out, but one will be out in February. February 12th. 12th for February 12th. Yeah.
Okay. This episode is definitely be out in much later than that. And
okay. Yeah, it'll probably be out by then.
Of course, the most easy question: social media. Do you have any social media you want to plug?
Yes. My Instagram is Thandiwe Love, which is THANDIWELOVE, and then underscore. I don't even know. I don't know. Yeah, that little line at the bottom. Yeah.
Anything else? No social media does that. All right.
Yeah, Facebook, but I mean, you just follow me on Instagram. That's fine.
I thought I was like waiting for the website too. Don't forget about the website. Yeah. Penny, thank you for being a great guest on the show. Sorry for being very all over the place, but I feel like that's the fun of these conversations. That my conversations with my guests are very all over the place because we're always talking about topics that are either not really talked about or just like talked about but not really talked about. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That has been the season premiere of season 5. Thank you for watching or listening, and take care, everybody. And please be safe.